Awesome. All right. Well, we are going to be talking to Mayor about this new fact sheet, the link between environmental change and invasive species. And the thing that I found the most interesting about this is that those are two things that I never would have linked together. So, can you explain, kind of in simple terms, how does climate change and invasive species, how are they connected?
Yeah, so if you think about buying your food, food could be more expensive. Hiking in the mountains, you may see some different trees than what you're used to, or you may see no trees, birds, insects. A lot of things will be changing in our lives. So if we want things to be the same, or then we need to think about these changes that could be coming.
Yeah. And they are coming, right? Like that's kind of what your fact sheet, like it's happening. Um,
Yes.
so can you explain how the climate change invasive species, like how are they all connected?
So, as the climate warms, for example, some insects may not be able to survive in that environment, or plants or birds, and may leave that, specific niche, say. And then another organism, a plant, an insect, will be able to survive better there. And it's one that probably is not going to be native to the area. And then that will push out even more of our natives. So, I think in the short sentence would be a loss of biodiversity.
Mm. It's so fascinating to me that invasive species can survive in more, like they have more, what was the word you called it? Like they can adapt easier,
Yeah,
right?
they're adaptable. So when you think about an invasive species, really it's well, so maybe let's say 1,000 species may be introduced into the United States in a year. Okay, 10% of those, 100, may be able to survive just for a little bit of time, but most of them will also die. Maybe 10 of those, so another 10% will be able to reproduce, but really not cause damage. But one of those then could become an invasive. So 1 out of 1,000. And the reason it can become invasive, it has those traits that allow that particular species to reproduce heavily and survive in really crazy environmental conditions.
That's
So that's kind of what makes an invasive species. It just happens.
so okay. And have you learned anything surprising about these two issues and how they've amplified each other?
I guess what's surprising is that it's happening now. We're kind of seeing some changes going on right now.
So, can you go into those? Like, what are some things you're seeing in Utah specifically because of these warming temperatures?
So one of them is there's it's actually not non-native to the United States, but it is to Utah. So there's a particular insect, is called a scale. It's non-mobile, but it originated in Southern California, and it's slowly been moving its way north into Utah, starting in about 2011 or so.
Mm.
So that's when it was first found in St. George, and now we're seeing it north into Kaysville, and they're specific to London plane trees and sycamores. So, and it's because it's able to survive. We're having warmer winters, and and now people are having to pay more money to treat their trees, and unfortunately use more insecticides
Mhm.
because of this invasive insect, which I said it's native to the United States, but invasive in our state.
Yeah. So how does it, I mean, you said it's not, how is it moving? Like what's that process?
It probably under our normal weather conditions was already present and just never was able to survive every winter.
Oh.
It probably died back. But this particular insect would probably move for the most part in the wind because those little eggs that hatch into crawlers are teeny, teeny, tiny. We can't even see them. And birds may carry them on their bodies and fly around. So, yeah, these invasives are introduced in a multitude of ways, but this particular one, I'm pretty sure it's just, yeah, windblown or other animals.
Okay, so you kind of talked about this a little bit, but how we're going to kind of combine how does this affect like Utahns' daily lives, but also like our gardens, our farms, outdoor spaces? Can you go into that a little bit more?
Yeah, so like I said, the invasives might need to be treated. So unfortunately, it could be spending more time on managing a particular pest. We may not be able to grow certain vegetables that we really used to grow well before. Um, and some plants that we would love to plant in our gardens, maybe we wouldn't be able to plant those anymore
Mm.
because, the climate is different, and also maybe there's an invasive that attacks that plant. And then one more is that there could be a nuisance of something, weeds, growing more in our gardens, or a nuisance pest coming into our homes.
Okay. So what should people do like if they see this in their home or in their yard? Like if they see an invasive something.
Yeah, so if it's one that we're really trying to focus on, I guess one example is spotted lanternfly. Don't know if you've heard of that, but
Mm.
it's like a giant aphid, basically,
Okay.
the size of a moth, but it does the same thing aphids do. So as it feeds, it will drip out honeydew. Anyway, so if that was spotted, then it would be great to let the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food know, but also us in extension. So you could let your county extension office know, or you could contact the Utah Plant Pest Diagnostic Lab.
So is there anything that we can do to prevent the spread of these invasive pests and species?
Yeah, I mean, if you go out hiking and camping in another state, just be sure and wipe off your boots in your car before you come back to Utah. When you travel to even another country, check your clothes and your luggage, make sure nothing's in being hitchhiked back to Utah. And just be on the lookout too as you're out and about, and educate your neighbors and your friends. So there's a lot of things that we can do that kind of passively help prevent spread.
That's awesome. I guess I've never thought about like wiping down my, I mean, I'm an avid hiker and I like, we really like camping. Well, we haven't done much camping this year because can't have a fire. So why camp without a
Oh,
fire, right? But I like the idea of wiping down. Like, what about like tents and stuff? Should people wipe those down?
if you have, a tarp on the ground and your tent is up, I don't, that's not a
Okay.
big deal. And the tarp you're using, usually what I do is I put it in another bag and seal
Hmm.
the bag.
Hmm.
And then when you come back, you're kind of putting your camping gear away. So if anything is brought with you, you'll hopefully spot it there.
Yeah.
But let's say your boots or your tires of your car, you've gone in on some remote lands or, elsewhere. Those you may want to just
Mm.
wipe down for weed seeds and other things because
Hmm.
you would be continuing with the travel with those, if that
Yeah,
makes
that's a
sense.
good idea. I've never, yeah, see, those are things that I would have never even thought about. So if you're looking ahead 20 years, what changes do you kind of predict we'll see if we don't address this issue?
So that's a hard one to answer.
Yeah.
I mentioned that sycamore scale, we saw it in 2011. So we've seen changes over 10 years.
Mm.
So maybe a 20-year time period, we're not going to see a lot of change, I don't think. I would imagine we'll probably have at least two new invasive species that maybe have become established in Utah,
Mm.
whether it's, like I said, a weed or an insect or a disease. I mean, we do have the fox squirrel. That's, I don't know if you're familiar with that, in Salt Lake City. So
No.
it's native to the eastern part of the country, but it somehow made its way to Salt Lake City, who knows how, and it's become established. So, and it's causing some consternation to people's irrigation lines, feeding on tree bark. Anyway, so that will probably spread quite a bit farther
Mhm.
in Utah.
Now, it's a lot of like kind of like scary things sounding, but is there anything that gives you hope for these invasive species controls?
I guess that people do care.
Okay.
There's a lot of activism out there. There's a lot of nonprofit groups that are really doing a lot of work to um, help prevent spread. So it's not just the regulatory folks.
Yeah.
There's a lot of activism. So that does definitely give me hope too.
Well, I think it's because people really care about our, there, I think we're starting to see a shift of like the small things can add up to big things later and maybe a little bit more like stewardship over the lands we do have and the stuff that we have So that's what I'm hoping sharing these articles and sharing your fact sheet can help people see like this is going to happen. So let's try to do our part to help. So,
Yes.
okay, well,
Recognize
awesome.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you. I'm gonna